Let's call ourselves to order. Welcome, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. Please rise and join me in a moment of silence, if you would. Thank you. Do we have pledge leaders?
Not tonight.
Not tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We'll call our roll. I'm present. Dr. O'Neill?
Present.
Mr. Heater is absent this evening. Mrs. Bales? Mrs. Barnes-Griffin? Mr. Irvin?
Present.
Mr. Lowe?
Present.
Thank you all. At this point, the spotlight is on the social studies folks, right?
Greetings.
Greetings.
I'm going to take this off. Greetings to members of the board and everyone that's present here tonight. I first would like to say thank you for allowing us, this group, an opportunity to come and share and provide you with an update on this initiative, which we call the MCS BSU Social Studies Curriculum Project. And as the Director of Diversity, one of my tasks of the strategic plan falls under Pillar 3, which is student-centered teaching and active learning. The goal of this pillar is to provide an exceptional academic experience for all learners, and we want to be committed to meeting their individual needs. We also want to mirror one of the foundational principles, which focuses on culturally relevant teaching and learning. And we want this to be embedded in all that we do when it comes to the curriculum, the materials, the lessons, to reflect positive, diverse representations. Our secondary social studies teachers, along with Dr. Sharon Fraser-Burgess and a few of her staff, which we have one of them here tonight, Veronica Sterrett, have committed to this work. And we've been meeting on our early release days at Northside Middle School since the fall. At this time, you will hear from Dr. Sharon, that's what I call her, who is also a professor of social foundations, multicultural education from Ball State, and director of PhD in educational studies, followed by Julie Snyder, and she's at our high school, and Alan A.J. Bradley, who's at one of our middle schools, Southside. And we also have a community member here present with us, who's also a parent, Mr. Alton Jackson. And he will be giving his perspective from a parent's point of view on this project. So at this time, Dr. Sharon.
Thank you, Rhonda. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me in particular. And it is my pleasure to talk about this project, which has as its goal to foster democratic civic engagement. And the idea is decentering whiteness in the social studies curriculum through advocating for a multi-perspective approach to educational studies. We believe that Black history is U.S. history. Indigenous American history is American history. And that to achieve culturally relevant instruction, it is important to include the whole story of the United States. As we strive to craft a more perfect union and to the complete formation of our democracy, we will need to make sure that everyone's story is told. So through the help of our BSU subject matter experts who are not with me today, but Jessica Ruther and Max Cantor, Felker Cantor, we have been working with the social studies teachers in this participatory action research project to support their diversifying of the social studies curriculum. And we have been so privileged and honored to do that work. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right. I'll take this off too. Hi, I'm Julie Snyder. I'm the Social Studies Department Chair at Muncie Central. And first of all, let me express our gratitude because this has been a really amazing project for us to take part in. Our department, I have to really pat us on the back because we've already been doing this for quite some time. And I think that this project really made us aware of that how I think a lot of us already do this in our teaching. We teach from different perspectives. We let the kids, and we hopefully show the kids that there's not just one perspective, that we want to tell the story from all angles, especially marginalized groups and their voices. And so it was really nice, I think the first meeting especially, when we figured out what all of this was about, we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, oh, we already do this. And so we felt pretty good about that. Obviously, we can get better, and that's one of the things that Dr. Sharon helped us with too, is looking at ways that we can grow and maybe help broaden what we already do. I love, she already threw out some of the terms that I love the most, which is democracy and civic engagement. If you know me, you know I teach government, and that's what I focus on throughout the year. And I just think that she's really shown us some other ways to do that in all areas, not just government. It can be done in literally every topic that you can think of, whether it's English, math. We can bring that kind of civic skill set to the classroom by giving kids more of a voice, right? And so whether, you know, I think a lot of us, I think some of you know Drew Shermetta, he does this in his classroom already. He gives the kids choices about what they want to do, what kind of project they want to do, what kind of topics they want to look into. And that's just, I mean, it seems kind of small, but it already sets their mindset on that kind of democratic ideal and civic mindedness that they can carry over into their adult life. One of the things I did want to mention was that this, let me find it here, sorry, I've got some notes. I think that Dr. Sharon, aside from just helping us see like the areas that we're doing well in, but areas we can grow in, by bringing the middle school in, I mean, that does wonders, right? Because now we as high school teachers, we're like so excited that we're building it down there. And then by the time they get to us, we don't have to start from the beginning. They'll have this skill set and they'll have this kind of idea of what this kind of social studies education is, telling the story from all the perspectives. So I think that was just a wonderful idea to make sure that at all levels we're getting that. I think too that she's been providing us resources, and for teachers that's just invaluable. One of the meetings that we had, we just sat and we collaborated, and that's sometimes that is so invaluable. We don't get to do that. We don't have common planning times or anything like that. So to just sit and get to talk about like what we're already doing, share our experiences. I kept hearing from other tables like, oh wow, I can't wait to do that in my classroom. That's really cool. That was just really invaluable for us to be able to hear other teachers and get suggestions on what we could do. And I know Veronica has been really helpful with that, trying to get the resources to us. I think also too that, one more thing, I swear, I won't get too deep. But you know, when you guys think about it, our whole idea since you came on board was just this innovation, right? That was the big word, innovation. And this feeds right into that, don't you think? Like just an innovative way to do something that we've been doing forever in one way, and now we're kind of putting a wrench in that and saying, no, we can teach history from a different perspective. We can show all of history without marginalizing groups of people, right? We can show the perspectives without, already holding down people that have been held down. And I think that's amazing. And this is stuff that we face every day in our classrooms. So we need to know we have your support. That's invaluable to us. We have difficult conversations every day. I just had one this week that blew up into something huge over, this topic. And, to know that we have your support, that's what we need, because it's hard. I teach seniors, so these are adults pretty much. And it can sometimes turn into like really uncomfortable situations, but that's what we've been talking about in these meetings is we have to do that. We have to have difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations, whether we want to or not. So I just want to thank you. It's been a wonderful partnership. I hope we can continue to do it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Joy.
Okay, hello all, hi. Those of you know, I'm AJ Bradley. Multiple people in here have been my principal before, so good to see those faces. All right. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Sharon for everything that she's been doing for us. And also, I would also like to invite any of you to our next meeting that we have, just to kind of come and see what we do and the discussions that we have, and you'll see how invaluable this program is to our school corporation. Ms. Snyder spoke on behalf of the high school, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the middle school. And the thing that I love about this program for the middle school is it kind of opens us up and gives us more freedom as teachers, because our standards at that middle school level are so vague and so broad, especially in the social studies, that, you know, to kind of get through things, you do a lot of cookie cutter at times. And this really kind of opens it up for us to see, no, wait a minute, there's other things that we can do and other avenues to go. That way, you're not shortchanging history. You're not doing wrong by people. And like she said, and knowing that you're supporting us now is nice and backing, because my principals in this room will also tell you I've kind of been known to be a little edgy at times and like to push the envelope at times. You know, because with history, it's not pretty. And we need to break that myth and that mold that it's pretty. It's not bows. It's not, you know, white picket fences and 2 dogs for everybody and 2 jobs. And, you know, everybody's a hero and everybody's, you know, history is the true story that needs told. And for too long, we haven't been doing it. Whether it's our fault, Standard's fault, whoever's fault, that doesn't matter now. What matters now is we're starting to change those things. And I thank you for letting us do this, and especially at the middle school level. Because at the middle school level, they're like sponges. These kids are like sponges. They just soak it up. And a lot of them haven't really developed personalities yet. They haven't developed these hardcore beliefs of theirs that are kind of hard to break at times. So they listen. They ask questions. You know, they want to know. Oh, they're like, oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that. And then they want to go deeper and deeper and deeper. So at the middle school level, I don't find myself actually having a lot of the tough conversations. I find myself, oh, really? Let's have more examples. Oh, what else? What else? So this wasn't right? You're telling me this guy didn't do that? And I'm like, no. And they're like, oh, so they want more. So this is a great time for us to be doing this. Personally, I also think we should look into elementaries as well, because history starts, you know, when they're young. All right? And we need to start knowing the stories now and building. And it's just little things from how you decorate your classrooms. What primary sources do you use? What quotes do you put on the board? Is it the same ones all the time? What projects do you do? You know, and this year we've done a good job at Southside of opening up and collaborating and do various projects and where we've taken this into science and English and really pulled stuff out. And you found different authors that the kids are reading. And those are the type of things that we're talking about in the middle school. We're just giving them more. We're not changing their minds. We're not changing their belief systems. We're just giving them more information so they can do with it what they choose and to be ready when they go on. So I thank you for allowing us this opportunity. Thanks for the freedom to teach this type of stuff. And I really hope if you guys are free our next open day, you kind of stop by Northside just to see what we're doing, because it is worth your time. So I thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Sharon, as well.
Do you have the date of that meeting?
And Dr. Ward. Our next early release day is at Northside, starts at 4, the 27th, at Northside in the library. All right, thank you for your time. 2 o'clock, sorry, we get out at 4, so at 2 o'clock. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alton Jackson. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and share a little bit from a parent's perspective. When I see the work that's been done here over the past year, it makes me a bit proud that I chose to keep my kids in Muncie Community Schools. For those of y'all that do not know, this actual initiative started last year when I saw everything that was happening in Minneapolis, and I saw the way that lynching looks like in 2020, right? 2020. And there's a lot of emotions, a lot of energy put out there. And so I am the kind of person that instead of step back and complain, I try to hold myself accountable to make a difference. So I put out on Facebook, what is it that we can do here to change what we see happening somewhere else so that can never happen here, right? I don't ever want that to happen where I'm at, because that means I'm not being the kind of citizen for the community that I hold myself up to be. And so with that, I was challenged, hey, what would it take to try to broaden the view of history for my local school district, right? What is it that would take? And so reached out to some people, and this journey was taken, and this is where we are. One of the things that I want to say as an actual parent, and as a parent living in this community, don't look at me as black, don't look at me as white, don't look at me as a certain socioeconomic context, because as I've shared in a lot of the meetings I've had, race is a man-made construct. Everyone knows that. Actually made in about 1600s in Europe, right? So we're all humans, literally. I started thinking about what kind of community are our kids going to go out into? Not just community from the way that we treat each other, but even community from the standpoint of jobs and being very, very competitive, and the mindset and edge that it takes for them to prosper in the society. Most people say, hey, you should send your kid to a private school. I think the best opportunity for our children is to be in an environment where they are mixed up with everyone and they're challenged to see life from outside of their own perspective. This is very important. Why is it very important? I'm in the technology field, been in the technology field for over 21 years. Started off working at Enron, worked at NASA, came up here, and the one thing that I learned about the advantage that I had over my fellow coworkers was that I understood how to get into other people's worlds. I understood how to see life from not just my own experience, but from other people's experiences from a personal standpoint, and that translates over to logic, science, math, history, and makes you a very well-rounded person, and it gives you an edge in this global world that we are in, and it gives you an opportunity to embrace opportunities and see gold in places that look like empty mines, right? And so I stepped back and said, hey, I would love for our school to embrace what it really means to be human by teaching us what real history is, not just Black history or American history, but it's all of our history. And in that, they will be equipped with the mental muscle to be able to go into any environment and be able to challenge anyone, because they know how to think, process, communicate, and even contain themselves emotionally when something doesn't really gel or something doesn't align with the way that they've been raised, the way that they've been taught. But they're open enough to see someone else's view with the thought of creating an opportunity that can provide for other people. And so one of the things that I hope, as this initiative has just started this year, that we find a way of being here in Muncie to highlight the great work that we are doing. I know they can be seen from a political standpoint. Oh, we're taking political sides. We're talking about teaching more Black history. No, it's American history. We're talking about teaching more women's history. No, it's American history. It is American history, and we have an opportunity here in a public school setting with the partnership of Ball State to produce private level education in a public setting. And I know, having worked in consulting spaces across the U.S. for Fortune 10, Fortune 5, Fortune 100 companies, that one of the most difficult things to really embrace is change. So I can only think through all the change management issues that these great teachers are going through, and people feeling like, what kind of curriculum are you guys teaching? And what I would ask, as being the son of a father who was an educator for 33 years with his master's degree focused in elementary special education, that we give these teachers the platform to do what they've been trained to do, which is to provide our kids with all the information and let them choose. If we can get beyond the politics of this, I guarantee you we'll have students coming out of this school that will be well more prepared for life and to make us all proud, which is why I'm here. That's my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Ms. Ward, could I have everybody come on up that was speaking? Couple things, and then open it up for questions. First of all, thank you so much for the work that you've undertaken. For those who may not know, the board, in conjunction with the leadership of the school and the university, put together our innovation plan over the course of basically 2 years, from 2018 to June of 2020. Fortuitously, ironically, at about the same time as Mr. Jackson was referencing last year. That was filed June 30th with the state. And Mrs. Ward, as you reference, one of the foundational elements in that plan is just what we've talked about, culturally responsive teaching, and then the third pillar of student-centered teaching. And the board, in those two instances, has expressed its support, its strong support, for what is happening with this group. So with that, thank you for undertaking it. It is, my view that history in all its richness, seen from many, many different perspectives as you circle it from 365 degrees, creates critical thinkers. It creates good citizens. It creates responsible citizens. And it will, as Mr. Jackson said, provide effectively a private school education for our students, which they certainly, like all our students, deserve. So with that, first of all, are there any questions from the group, from the board for this group? Jim?
Oh, yeah, I thought you asked them. They had a question.
No, you.
Sorry. So I am curious. So, the topic is history, but there's a lot of current events going on. So how much do you get into current events, and how do you tie that nicely back to history in that regard? Because so much is going on, and yesterday was history. So how do you tie all that back together?
Well, like I said, I teach government all day. I have different levels of government, AP, dual credit in general. That's all my class is, pretty much, is current events, because I try to tie everything back to what's happening today. If we're looking at the Declaration of Independence, try to directly tie that to things that are happening today. So we start out each day, literally, I say, okay, what happened over the weekend? Let's talk about the current events, and we'll even watch, CNN has a really neat thing where they do the top 5 stories just in like a 10-minute run through. That's pretty good, and they just run through like the top stories of the day or of the week. And so that's what I do. And Sharon had us do a really neat activity where we took some lessons that we had either taught in the past or that maybe we wanted to teach, and how we would teach those from a different perspective. And that was really thought-provoking, because like I told you guys before, we felt like we did this, but to actually sit and think of specific like lessons and specific things that we did, it was a really interesting activity, and I'm glad she had us do it, because it also challenged us to think about how we could continue to do that in other ways. And I think current events is key. I mean, there's so many things happening right now that lead to those tough conversations. And I think that in my class, for one, it's been very welcome with open arms. The kids have been very good about it.
So there's one more tag onto this, and that's my favorite saying is, if you want to predict the future, create it.
Yeah.
So in your classes, do you talk to students about how they could create a different future?
Absolutely.
Good.
Just by doing this, like
Right.
saying that, if, well, I'll just give you an example. One of the things we do at the Declaration of Independence, when Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal, I have them read it again as somebody, and, I said, pretend Thomas Jefferson was writing this in 2021. What do you think then his perspective would be compared to what it was back then, and how would you change it if you could? And so they have to kind of think about what he really meant back then, and like, would he mean the same thing if he wrote it now, or if we were writing it as the authors of such a document? So I don't know. We do that with everything. I think just saying to the kids, well, watching the inauguration and seeing the first African-American vice president, woman vice president, elected, and saying, look how this has changed what's happening in our country for decades to come, right? For future generations. So stuff like that.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that question, because that question actually gets me excited about history. Because one of the things that I teach my students is history is alive. It's not something that was 200 years ago. You know, and I tell them because, especially at middle school age, I tell them almost all of you think for yourself, but none of you do. Most of what you do is ordained by something that happened 200, 300, 400 years ago, you know, and gets into the culture and things like that. So we use the current events to say, okay, how is this shaping the next 100 years? What's coming next? So let's look at this, and then let's find parallels to history, and you bring it together and you look at how it's changed. And then I tell them what you understand, what happened, how it's changed, then we can go from there and see where this change is going. How can we modify this change, good change, bad change? And you teach it that we have control over it. We take the history, we take the current events, and then we have control of where that goes from there. Rather than somebody writing the story for us, we now get to write the story. We read their story, we live our lives now with the current events, and we start writing it for others and helping others. So it's very exciting to be able to tie in all the current events, you know, because that's how you teach history. Everything's connected.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments, concerns?
I was going to ask a question. I just want to make sure I kind of understand how this is evolving. When we first kind of had some initial conversation about this, we were talking about curriculum, and in my mind, at least, it seems like it was going a certain direction as far as creating some type of specific curriculum at the time. It sounds like this is like a dynamic thing that gives the teachers some latitude in what they're teaching. Am I understanding that right? Are there curriculum, solidified curriculum that is being formed, or how does that work?
Thank you for that question, Pastor Keith. So the methodology of the project is that there's a 3-year timeline. And that timeline is to allow for teacher agency, but with a particular goal of transforming the curriculum by the end of that time. So the first year was the baseline year where we sort of entered into conversations about teaching primary sources. How currently is that being done? And as Julie said, people became aware of what was the current practice. The BSU subject matter experts were there talking about social studies pedagogy. And we sort of gathered data, baseline data for the first year. In the summer, we will enter into a intense curriculum development. And we're doing this in partnership with 2 entities. One is Teaching with Primary Sources, which is associated with the Library of Congress. They gave us $20,000 for teachers to be able to draw on the Library of Congress in developing their curriculum maps. So, and in addition, as a part of that grant, there was a sub-grant or consulting work that's being done by the National Council of History Education. So their experts will be coming to work with the teachers in Muncie Community Schools over the summer to envision what this curriculum would look like. So the first year was kind of looking at what is in place, seeing the strengths, seeing the weaknesses. The summer will be intense curriculum development, implementation in the fall with kind of ongoing sort of monitoring, returning at the end of that time to see ways that we were successful and not, and finally tweaking that curriculum map for implementation in the final year. So this gives the teachers maximum agency. I'm a strong believer that we've got competent, talented, and passionate teachers, and we need to stop tying their hands and let them have their passion in the classroom to teach what they love. And once we do that, their creativity and their commitment, once unleashed, will produce excellent classroom experiences. And so that is the theory of change of our program. It's let the teachers do the work and provide the resources, money not being the least of them, for them to do that work. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm excited to see it's going in that direction. My concern when we first began to talk about this is that we don't, that we would make sure that we have very specific outcomes in mind. In my world, lots of pastors and parishioners will ask from other places how we're doing what we're doing in terms of the multicultural church with an African-American pastor. And the assumption is, well, you know, everybody's welcome at our church. We don't hold anybody back. Well, not with your music the way it is, not with your leadership the way it is, not the things that you say over the pulpit, it's not. And so these kinds of things have to be intentional. And so that's what I want to hear, is the fact that we're working towards something and being intentional about what the outcome is going to be.
Yes, we have metrics and benchmarks and deliverables that we want to say we've accomplished what we set out to do, which is to produce this curriculum, this year-long curriculum.
It's great.
Any additional questions? Is there anything that this group needs from the board, other than what we've said, which is our support of this initiative?
Are you sure you want to ask a question like that? Well, I tell you something. I'll tell you a story, and I'll try to be brief. I went to sit in on the class of one of our teachers, and that day his computer was not working. And he was using his cell phone to teach the lesson while the students were working on their computers. And it occurs to me that we have to make sure our teachers have the right equipment. That needs to be a priority. I don't know why we're providing equipment for students and we're not making sure that teachers are suitably prepared to do a good job. So that is one of the things that I think. And also, I really want us to support our teachers. Teachers have gone through such a difficult time in the last 3 years. They've taken a lot of the blame for some of the challenges in education, and it has really diminished the profession. And as a teacher educator, I really take that to heart, because this is a special profession that democracy needs. We need our teachers to produce good citizens. And so to the extent we can support them through helping them also navigate this political terrain, because some of the teachers have mentioned that the pushback from parents has begun, and they need to know that when that happens, the school board has their back, the principals have their back, and perhaps are thinking of alternate ways to raise the consciousness of the community so that they understand what job the teachers have, you know, as teachers, and that being separate from being a political task. So to the extent that you can clear the path in front of them so that they can do their job of fostering critical thinkers, that would be fantastic.
Well, an honest appraisal of knowledge and the story of our past should not be political. And from this vantage point, as long as it's being done in a rigorous and intellectually honest way, then from my perspective, you have our complete support.
Yeah, I'd like to go a little bit along that lines, but also coming from the, again, being here in Muncie, I had plenty of opportunities to leave. I'm now working for a corporation that's an old corporation here, but it's kind of new in its ownership structure. I'm working for Ontario Systems. They have new management out of Boston, New York, and LA. I was able to get them to donate money to this specific initiative. And there's a lots of other goodwill that we can bring in all other areas from a science and technology standpoint. And people from all over the nation that work for this company are waiting for me to give them ways that they can come and help Muncie community schools. But I also want it to be highlighted somewhere, right? So that beyond from a financial investment standpoint, you know, companies definitely want to see, hey, the money that was given, there's something that they can point to say, okay, it's being publicized, helps out with them. But then also, that is the only way from a change management standpoint that we can get along with the traditional pendulum of culture swings that we've been through. The pendulum it swings back and forth, and when everyone's trying to dodge when we can get into change. I say let's just break the actual pendulum, move forward, and just be proud about the end result in our citizens, in our children, and our youth that's going to come out of this. So just further, some way, publicizing the work that's being done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Real quick, I know you got to go, but to that, the publicizing, if we could take it a step further and like Make it something that we're known for and proud of and push. And what I mean is if you hear the Westview, that's where my son goes. Everything that gets sent out about Westview, it brags about their dual language program. Every single thing.
We
You
have
say
brochures to share tonight.
There we go. Muncie Central and Early College. Everything that goes out with Central is connected to Early College. The community knows. Our ELP EWA and at Northside. Like you say those things and they're connected because they're pushed from this level on flyers and on registrations, and they're connected and intertwined. And that's what I would like to see with this program, for the community to know in Muncie, this is what we do. When they hear a Muncie school, they think of this the same way you have a flyer with Westview, boom, dual language. There's a flyer for, Muncie Community Schools, boom, this new initiative, this program of history. Just to make it known and own it and for us to be proud of it the way that it is. So I'd like to take it a step further than just like pushing it and like, Alton has said, but to also make that something that we're proud of, the way we are of all of those other things, the way we all stand up here and go, early college, yes. Dual language, yes. Decentered curriculum, yes. That's where I would like to take this, and that's where I would like the board's support in getting us there and making sure that's part of everything we do when we talk Muncie schools, when we're telling people why they should enroll here. That should always be on what we are saying and in our flyers and on our billboards and everywhere else. It should be part of who we are now. Not just kind of a program we run, but literally part of who we are. Because our goal is to get this through all of the subject matters, not just social studies. All of them has ways that we can change. And that's our goal overall, and that's what I hope you guys help us do.
Thank you. Mrs. Ward, if you want to give some.
I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you to Dr. Sharon, who is wonderful to work with. I really enjoyed the partnership with Ball State, and then our committee. Thank you.
So, Dr. Kay, you had something before we wrapped up?
Well, so first, of course, our teachers, I just want to commend you for all the work and effort and the time getting together and digging in and collaborating. So I've been, very proud of the work you've done. I look forward to the next couple of years as we continue. And Alton, I've appreciated last summer when you reached out and being part of the committee to develop the work that we're doing. And then I can't say enough about Dr. Sharon because she already has a full-time job at Ball State University, and nobody will ever realize the amount of time and effort that she's put in to preparing for when she's going to meet with our teachers and gathering with the other professionals from Ball State to be ready when they come over to Muncie Community Schools. So again, another great example of our partnership and of your commitment to this work. So thank you for that.
I just have a quick couple comments.
Mrs.
First of
Fields?
all, I could not love this more. So you have my unconditional support, whatever you need. I would love for you guys to come back once you start implementing this so we can hear how it's going and just be updated on your progress. And AJ, you already said this, but I was going to ask if you planned on expanding this across the curriculum and generalizing, because I think it would be awesome. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And I gotta put my assistant principal hat on now and excuse myself because I have a baseball game.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Back
you.
to baseball. Good stuff.
Dr. Kay.
Just a few updates I wanted to share. Today, I sent out information to the board that we had to move Southside Middle School to e-learning due to having some electrical issues. We have the electricians out and things are up and running, and so we should not need an e-learning day tomorrow. Everybody was very responsive. We have those nailed now. When we have to move to e-learning, people know what that means and we're ready to go. We just learned that we have a teacher that's been named the Armstrong Teacher Educator Award out of the IU School of Education. It's a very prestigious award that they acknowledge 10 teachers across the state, and Kelsey Palvalka from Westview has been named an Armstrong Teacher Educator Award. We have had two other Armstrong teachers in our district. One was Eric Ambler, who now is the principal at Westview, and the other is Michelle Beatty, who's the music teacher at Westview. So I think we see a pattern there, all a great group of folks. We are very proud that we have our summer programs are now on our website. If you go to our homepage and you go under student and parent, you can find summer camps. And we have overviews of our elementary, our middle, and our high school programs, along with all the different applications that people can use. I am working with our community partners who are going to help in numerous ways to make sure that we get our students enrolled in our summer opportunities. And our commitment has been, if we fill up our spots, we will find ways to expand to make sure all of our students have opportunities this summer. So we're fortunate for all the different groups who are reaching out to us and who are working with us. With our summer programs, we are going to open up slightly, starting to use our volunteers again. Tiffany Arnold is back from her maternity leave, so she'll be coordinating with the different folks who want to partner, but the stipulation we're putting on that is that we want to make sure they've had a vaccination. So if they've had a vaccination, then we will welcome them to volunteer with our students. And so we know we have a good group of folks who are eager to get back to working with our kids. We've missed them this year. Registration is going well. We've heard that we have prize baskets going out for those who are registering early, and the families who have received those have appreciated them. And we just hope to be able to get as many of our families enrolling early as possible. So we really are trying to do some unique things. I know Chuck, with the VLP program, the parents have to bring their students in for iLearn, the state test. So Chuck is going to set up a little tent outside. He's going to have the devices, and when the families drop off the students, he's going to block the cars and not allow them to leave until they register, and we get our folks registered. So all of our principals, we have a nice healthy challenge to find out which school can have the best percentage. And so we're trying many different unique ways of getting families registered. We still have pre-K and K registration nights that will be taking place the month of April. And so if you know of anyone who has a 3 or 4-year-old, we put their preference on 4-year-olds. We have pre-K spots, and we are happy to get them in our schools. Our MAC videos are almost ready for release. Caleb and Andy have done a nice job to showcase what we have to offer at the MAC. Once those are available, we'll make sure you get to see them and see all the great pathways that are available to our students. And then finally, the last I want to mention is this Saturday is Ball State University's Day of Service. We have groups coming out to help at Southview, I believe it's Grissom, and Camp Adventure, where they'll be doing a little bit of beautification of the schools. So we'll be excited to have them. Oh, and lastly, I'm not supposed to forget this either. In front of you, you'll have the dual language program that is at Westview. They put together a promotional brochure, and it was created in partnership with Ball State and Muncie Community Schools, and another great way of showcasing some of the good things that are taking place in our district.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Kwiatkowski? Questions? Any public comments? Okay. Thank you. We're on to the consent agenda. We have items A through F inclusive. I want to take a moment again and recognize the donors to Muncie Community Schools. We have a list of donations in your materials, which are quite long, and many, many donations to Panther Pantry. So thank you to all of our donors. And we have on the personnel item, one retirement I want to recognize Jackie Cole, who was is at Longfellow Elementary School, and she's been with MCS 34 years. So take a moment and recognize Jackie's longstanding contributions to MCS. So thank you, Jackie, for all that you've done and are doing for MCS. With that, anything additional in the consent agenda about which any member has questions? Hearing none, would entertain a motion. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. The annual lease for Northside Middle School, Mr. Durrell.
Yes, thank you. In your board packet is the annual lease agreement with Ball State. This is a new 3-year term that we put in front of the school board tonight for approval.
Any questions for Mr. Durrell regarding Northside Middle School? Okay, hearing no questions, would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Thank you, Brad, and others for getting that pulled together. Item 214 is coming off the list, and that there's going to be an alternative sought by Mr. Jerome, which doesn't involve that expenditure. So the financial report 215, Mr. Jerome.
Thank you. Also include in your board packet just the update, the financial report for our results for the month of March. Obviously, that's only 3 months into a 12-month year, so we're just heading towards the summertime. We have the state basic grant. They've not updated that yet for our enrollment in February, but they'll do that within another month. Still expecting to be in a surplus position in the education fund by the end of this school year. And I've listed some of the highlights there on the next page or so. Still projecting very healthy balances in the overall cash balance for the school corporation at the end of December of 2021. I have been doing a lot of extensive work the last week or two with our DLGF field auditors as we have prepared some preliminary 2022 budget as well as 2023 budgets, trying to just figure out some of our cash flow positions because of some of the tax caps that are so large, and we also are paying back our balloon payments on the GO bonds in 2023. So this is all fitting together. The timing is right to talk about it with our field auditors as well as our own financial position. So as we have more information, we'll continue to share that with the board as well as we wrap that up with the strategic planning and financial plan that Baker Tilly's helping us with. Other than that, that just kind of completes our financial report for the month.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Jerome? Hearing no questions, would entertain a motion to approve the financial report.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anybody have any dialogue or recommendations? Anybody?
Long day.
Okay. Well, welcome back, everybody. It feels like it's been a while. And I guess it's been about a month, hasn't it? So, media questions. Is there any media here? No media here? At this point, would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all. Have a nice evening.